The race starts actually after 36 hours. That's where you
Yeah.
can see, that's where everything happens. And if you're not mentally prepared at that time, then you're not able to finish, because after 36 hours, you have raced for a long time. It's a long time, 36 hours. But in this race, the race has just started. And then, when you look at the time and you see that, okay, we raced for 36 hours, we came this far, but you might not even have come to Onö at that time, or at that. So that's when it starts to get tricky, and that's where the mental part really kicks in.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 259 of the show. We got a great show for everyone this week. Slightly overdue, we have Thomas Ogander, Swimrun OG himself, race director and founder of OneWaterRace, to talk about the 2024 edition. This interview didn't disappoint. This race just keeps leveling up, both in the media coverage, the athleticism, the insanity.
The teams. The insanity, yes.
It's crazy. It certainly is the ultimate proof of human potential. And yeah, this was an awesome chat, Chipper.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to have Thomas on, and I really love how he is constantly pushing himself to bring things to the next level, whether that's the media side of it, of course, presenting more challenges for the competitors, trying to get more country representation throughout. He's always just constantly pushing the envelope and really pushing himself to do bigger and better things. So really awesome conversation with him. He's it's like a dog-eared. Every year we'll have the OneWaterRace recap, the race director's recap on for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And as we were just saying, like, the media coverage was great. So definitely check out the YouTube channel that they have, where they have just a bunch of this stuff curated. So you can see summaries, you can watch all sorts of content. And we try to get some exclusives out of them. We didn't get too many, but the field has already been selected, and there's going to be a drip campaign as they're want to do, to try to make it as cool as possible. And I think that's going to start, I think, in the new year. But so applications are essentially closed for 2025. They're already talking about 2026, which is amazing. But yeah, this race continues. It captivates us, not in a FOMO way, but just in like, oh, this is interesting. What's possible?
Yeah, I mean, and it really, from every angle, we dove into a lot of the logistics and what it takes to run that sort of media coverage, and on the ships back in Stockholm there, and then obviously the whole athlete portion of it, and what they're going through there is just a really extraordinary event from every angle that you take at it. So it's just so cool to have Thomas's perspective on it as well. And yeah, I think he even said there's teams not applying for this year, but they're like, oh, we're getting ready to apply for 2026. So people are really seeing the magnitude of this event and what it takes. So I can't wait to see what teams are being revealed here. Any day from time of release here, we should start to see those kind of roll out. So, like Chris mentioned, head over to the YouTube channel and on the socials there for OneWaterRace to follow along and all the fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think with that, let's just get right to it, huh?
Yeah. Let's take a journey that doesn't take as long as the OneWaterRace, sub 60 hours. Here, the transition into our conversation with OneWaterRace director, Thomas Ogander.
The OG. At least that's what we've been calling him for a while.
We have.
He's cool with it. He hasn't told us, like, I'm not the OG. All right, back on the show for the third time, the Swimrun OG himself, Thomas Ogander. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here again.
Well, great to have you. We're obviously here to talk about OneWaterRace. You did it again. Unbelievable. An amazing race. Before we get into how you sort of leveled up the media coverage and everything else, why don't you tell us, how did you feel about this year's race? What were your, give us your race director report.
Well, to start with, it was, it's the third year, but, we try to level up each year. So even though you think that, okay, we got it, but you don't. And that's one of the things with the race as well, that we really want to level up at all times. But it felt good from the start. We had a good line as well. And the conditions were good, I would say. It was a little bit more windy this year than the other years, and not at least in the end. During Danziger, it was totally crazy. But I think we had a tight race. The aim for this year was to have a closer fight, so to speak, and try to get more teams on the finish line. I think we had a good podium, which was great, so to speak. So all in all, it was a really good year, I would say. And it even though the only thing that you know in the race is that you don't know what's going to happen, but it felt okay all the way. And then of course everything happened. But all in all, really really good race, I would say. Fantastic podium, and really good to have three good teams on the finish line and the podium as well.
Well, it's good to have a full
That's
podium,
impressive.
right?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, having a podium is a win in itself.
It is. So, well, we actually had 3 teams finish the first year, but then we didn't have the podium itself. But it's good, and not at least after last year, we just one team at the finish line. So
Right.
60 hours. So good.
Yeah, and to start you had a good mix of, we've been seeing this trend of teams that are returned for a second or third attempt at the race, and then some teams that are kind of fresh and wild-eyed and bushy-tailed towards it.
Fresh meat.
Yeah, fresh to take on the OneWaterRace course. But how do you like to kind of see the mix-up of the teams on the start line? And as we're meeting now, applications are open. If your interest has already peaked for the OneWaterRace 2025, get those applications in. But Thomas, how do you like to look at the starting line with some returning teams and then some fresh teams?
Yeah.
How do you like to balance that out?
Yeah, well, I like the mix, and then in the end, how prepared you are. You almost need to have the experience of doing the race, because if you haven't done it, you don't know. And even though you have experience from multiple day races, this is one of a kind, so to speak. So what we did to this year, because I'm known from the start that the teams that we have on the starting line, they have the capacity to take it all the way, but in the end, they don't make it. And it's not the physical challenge, it's the planning and the mental challenge. That's the whole thing. So what we did to this year, that the new teams, they had to send in a race strategy report. And that's, I made a document for them to fill in. So they, have to, go through the race and all the different kind of challenges in their mind as a team and individual as well. So then, because it has been a bit frustrating not to have more teams on the finish line when I know that they have the capacity, but and even though they might have set the plan, they are not able to keep the plan. So it's really good from my perspective, to give them the chance, or what I need. So I have had a dialogue with all the new teams concerning their strategy. Not that I'm helping them, but and that's also when it comes to pace and everything, because I want them to tell me what kind of pace they will have during the race, because it differs a lot from start to finish, and also what kind of strategy they have in all the challenges and everything. And then I also can have a dialogue with the new teams and say that, okay, you say that you plan to sleep for an hour, don't. That's not part of the strategy. You cannot sleep. So it's good not to help them, but in a way to to lift up the mental part, because that's what you see, and that it was in this race as well. You know, the race starts actually after 36 hours. That's where you can see, that's where everything happens. And if you're not mentally prepared at that time, then you're not able to finish, because after 36 hours, you have raced for a long time. It's a long time, 36 hours. But in this race, the race has just started. And then, you know, when you look at the time and you see that, okay, we raced for 36 hours, we came this far, but you might not even have come to Onö at that time, or at that. So that's when it starts to get tricky, and that's where the mental part really kicks in.
Well, let me ask you, Thomas, and this is truly asking for a friend, because I can't even fathom being at the start line for this race, because it's so beastly. But what are, you know, seeing this race 3 years, I totally get wanting to have teams have a good experience, get more people up the finish line. What are the common mistakes that you see people make? Like, obviously, fitness wise, people are taking this seriously, they're training for it. Like, so what are the things that you see that sort of trip up, particularly like new teams, when they show up at OneWaterRace?
Well, I would say the first thing is the experience part, and that because if you haven't done it, you're not prepared, and then you think you have plans, but if you haven't done it, those plans doesn't work. So
Well, it's like Mike Tyson says, it's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right?
Exactly. So that's one part, and then it's the multi-day experience thing, because we had some teams this year when they ended up after like 40 hours, they think that, oh, we can't make it, you know, it's too far, and so I would say from my perspective, it's just that, because when it comes to the physical part, all teams can make it, and no team this far has quit or been pulled out due to the physical challenges. It's all mental. So now when we talk about race strategy and so on, and new teams, they say, okay, we will do some 24 hours
training session, like overnight training
and
or
that's,
something.
you know, 24 hours, it's, you know, that's not enough. You need to do 48 hours of training, because you need to know where you are after 36 hours and what will happen after that. So that's, you know, so we could see that. So that's like we had Helene Wikmar and those. They were new team. You know, when I talked to them, they still talk about it. That when we talked about the multi-day experience and everything, they say, okay, no problem. We have twins at home, so we know how to keep the preparation.
That is true, though.
That's true, but this is another kind of
it's like maybe if they had triplets, then it's better.
The deprivation, but at that time, I think they quit or were pulled out after like 38 hours, and they were really strong at that time. And then Anders, he was of course he was really struggling, and he was cold and so on. But at that time, when they pulled out, I'm just talking generally here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when they pulled out after 38 hours, it was like, we cannot go further. This is too much, and it's too much swimming and everything, and we're cold and so on. But then when you look at the map, it's like, okay, you have like maybe 2 or 3 Ks of swimming. Then you have Onö to warm up, and you have running, and then you have Utö, and of course you have Danzigerget. But at that time, it's mentally, it's too hard to handle, I would say, and that's the only thing, that you need to be able to cope with that mental challenge after 40 hours to be able to keep on going. And
I mean, it's crazy that you haven't mentioned, 50K of swimming being the thing that destroys people,
No,
right?
yeah,
It's like the cold, it's the sleep dev,
no, but
it's
yeah, exactly. But it's like after, because when starting this race, I was only talking about, the 50, 60 Ks of swimming and
Yeah.
everything. And of course, it's such a lot. But that's in the end, when you're talking about these kind of athletes at this level and the way that they train and the experience they have from that perspective, that's not really, the issue. Of course, we know that I talked to Glenn, Rob, and Elizabeth, and Julian, and they have a really big struggle at Danzig Gat this year. They have total headwind, 12, 15 meters, about one meters waves, and it was totally dark, and they ended up taking actually a little bit longer swim. I think they had like 7.5 Ks of swimming on, and in the complete darkness and those kind of condition, and it took 3 hours and 45 minutes, that swim. And that was, 3 hours and 45 minutes, totally pitch black, 1 meter's way. And that was, I would say, or they told me that's what's, that's the limit.
I mean, I
They
tend to agree
they
with them.
found
That's-
it.
And I
They
can
found
It's
it.
diabolical. It's diabolical.
Yeah, but in the end, it's all mental, and we have this scientific project also with GIH, the Stockholm School of Sport and Health Science, and we have sensors on all the races and everything. And if you look at the temperature level, no one during the race is cold, sort of. Of course, they're freezing, but if you look at the temperature level, no one are below.
Their vitals are fine.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
when you look at the figures, they're fine, not a problem at all. So even though it's like 14 degrees in the water and so on, the temperature levels are fine. No one is even close to hypothermia. So that's
good.
also interesting, even though they're freezing, but that's another way, that's another part. It's not dangerous. It's a way, okay, how can I handle the freeze? But in the temperature levels are okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I remember not to jump into the race report or whatever, but that 7K swim on like the second day or whatever. I just remember seeing that come up on the map, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that this is the great equalizer. I forgot what the swim is named, but it certainly is humbling. It looks like this year one of the things that you did add was a lot of the sensors to the athletes, temperature and other things. Was that new for this year's version of the race? And talk us through a little bit about what you were trying to understand from that part.
That's new. We had a test last year. We didn't go live, or we didn't have it in real time, but we had 3 sensors on 9 racers last year, and this is a part of my background from the sports and media part. So I've been working with this. I started with like 2015, and in the end, it's like, the body is it will be more and more digital, which means that we can add, we have our smart watches and everything, and the technology are just going so far. So in the end, we will all be digital, so we can just transfer. It's all about data from the body to. So what we have been doing from the start of the race is that we have been working or creating a software who can handle all kind of data, and then we add data now to the racers. So they had 5 sensors on them, and so we could follow all the racers. So the racers had 5 sensors on the body, all from glucose to ketose to blood sugar, heart temperature, and so on. So
Wow.
and the runner that we have with the teams. So all the sensors are going via Bluetooth. So they go to the runner, who have an iPhone as a sensor central. So all the Bluetooth sensors are going to the iPhone, and then up to the cloud and to our software. So we could sit and watch all racers individual in real time during the whole race. And then, so what we are trying to do from that perspective, one part from a medical perspective or a safety perspective, just to see how they are, but also it's interesting, can we add another dimension to the viewer? We tried to make this year, some kind of performance score or racer load or something, if we can, take this data together and try to get some kind of curve so you can follow. So we had a test from this year, but we have all the data in real time. And then the next step, one part is that each racer, they have this data after the race, so they can, what kind of levels did we have? How was my blood sugar? How we planned our energy intake in this perspective? Should we take it in another way or so? So that's one part. And then also what could we do for next year? Because I want to take the race and the sport to another level, because in the end, it's so interesting to see how they all are feeling. And we have Marcus Moberg from GH. We had it in the live production for some parts, but and that's what I think is interesting during the race, to see how they actually are doing, and to look at the data and see how it differs and so on. Because for now, we see that they are running and swimming, and they have sleep deprivation and so on. But to see, okay, what is really happening in the body, and it's so interesting to see also the activity curve during the race and so on. So that's a really interesting part. And what we would like to do also, it's in the end, if you look at the data can look good, but if you ask the racer, how do you feel? How would you say, okay, are you 10 from 1 to 10? Where are you?
Sure.
And you say, okay, I'm a 4, but if you look at the data, you're a 9. And in the end, it's about the mental part. And in Swedish, we call it pannben, in the end, the mental part that makes you go further, even though, what do you say in English? You know what I mean? Some people have
mind over matter, something like that.
Yeah, so even though your body cannot go further, your mind or whatever. And that's interesting to find as well. What's the difference that, ship can go further than you, Chris, even though you have the same physical you are the same. And that's also what we want to try to develop or to go into science, to see what is actually happening in the body. And now we have created the Human Integration Hub. It's an organization between us, GIH, the Stockholm School of Science, Sports and Health Science, KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology, and Karolinska Institutet, which is behind the Nobel Prize from a medical perspective. So we together are working with this.
That's amazing. I mean, I think, one thing to kind of segue off of that, I mean, it's great to capture all this stuff, but it's another thing to let people see it. And I think this year in particular, I mean, Chipper and I, while as it was happening, we were texting back and forth. It's like, like Adriel just yelled at, at Daniel for like not swimming, like all this stuff, like the media coverage and the live feeds. It really seemed like a level up from years past. And, and this is such a complex race to even capture on film. I'm curious kind of what was the thought process and how you level it up, because again, from the viewer perspective, this year was certainly the easiest one to follow and the one where it felt the most compelling. Again, you could hear Adriel yelling in the water, telling people you got to swim harder, because like we're not moving,
All the details.
It's like all this stuff. I mean, it really felt like you were almost like embedded with a lot of the teams. Talk to us about how you sort of developed the media plan and how you leveled up from years past.
Yeah, it's well, we leveled up quite much from last year, and this is also has been my ambition from the start, because live sport is my background, and also exactly just to be able to show what is happening, and for the viewer to be there at all times, so to speak. So what we did for this year, it was, well, the same technology we used from 2023, but more live signals. So what we had for this year, we have the runners with the live backpacks, so to speak, so they can be live at all times. And then we added two, what we called it. So we have the runner run with the team at all times, and then we added two, what we called action teams, who could be there, because when the runner and when the teams enter the water, what you want to be there as well. So then we added an action team to be there with the boat when the team entered the water, and then also when they exit and so on. So when we produced the team live, we had the runner, we had an action team on that team, and we have the drone as well. And sometimes we had another camera as well. So we had between 2 and 4 live signals on the team that we live produced, and altogether we had 15 live signals to work with. And we have 2 technical boats as well, taking care of all the cameras, the power banks and everything. And it was quite tough this year, because we're using so much electricity. So we had like 2 or 3 boats went totally out during the race. Yeah. Not the team. Well, I think 1 team boat, but that was another perspective. But from the media perspective, because we used too much electricity. So we need to, during the race, we needed to bring in these diesel engines that to
like a generator,
on some of the boats. So we had like 15 live signals, and then a big team as well. And it's all 5G based, so all the signals and everything goes up in the cloud and down to our MCR, that is called, in Stockholm, where we had like 20 people working in. So it's it's the same setup. It's logistically it's a nightmare.
Yeah, you're a madman for even trying to do all this.
But it's like
not just the media side, not even the race.
Yeah, because when you have you have the racers, that's not a problem, so to speak. But then you have the runner, the action teams, and everyone has to mix as well, and all the boats and everything. And then in Stockholm, everyone is working around the clock as well. So that's from the media part out, I think we had like 23 or 25 persons that worked around the clock in the archipelago, and then about 20 in Stockholm as well. But we have that's totally fascinating. We have such a good, the team that we work together with. That's a part of this race as well when it comes to all the persons involved. It's a fantastic organization, and everyone loves this, and it's crazy because it's in the middle of the week, and all of them are they're taking vacation to be part of the race, and this year we have I think we had 34, 35 skippers only. We had 23 boats this year, so that's also a part of the race that I want to that's really interesting to go behind the scenes, and that's where you need to come and sit and be part. It's fantastic just to follow all the organizations, all the boats and everything, and everyone is working around the clock. Everyone is are there because they want to be there. They want to add. They want to be better. And so, yeah, we leveled up quite a bit in the media, and we will level up for next year as well, which is really interesting because this year we... oh, sorry. This year we tried to bring in a reporter as well, but in the end, it's impossible to be everywhere. But what we will do for next year is that we will use the runners, the media runners, because they are there at all times. So having more of a studio at the big ship, Briggen Tre Kronor, and then work with the media runners and use them as reporters as well, because then you can sit and talk to, okay, what's happening with team number 3? You go to the runner. When he sits on the boat, he can make a report and he can talk to the support crew and everything. So that we want to find the very best way to tell the story. What is the story around race? What is happening? Okay, now we have team number 3 working there. We have so working from an editor perspective at all times as well. So,
I mean, it's really incredible, and yeah, I believe I saw the photo that you posted, and yeah, the amount of people that you have on staff or supporters. This is just really, I mean, the whole race. From a racer perspective, logistics, everything is just quite incredible. So, hats off to you again for even attempting to pull it off and doing so in an amazing fashion. But yeah, would really love to hear kind of what you're thinking about for next year. I assume you all have kind of had your retrospective where areas that you were looking to. You mentioned leveling up the media again and leveraging the runners for some of those interviews. What else do you have in store for us viewers?
Well, I think being there at all times, we will probably work with water scooters next year. Easier to be close and easier to be there at all times. The studio perspective, I think, because that's in the end. Well, we had that have had that these years as well, but it's really important to work from an editor perspective. What story are we telling now? Can we follow all teams? What is happening? So I think that's kind of dynamic during the race will increase the viewer experience, and we also will take the next step when it comes to the sensors and everything. So you can level up that kind of dialogue as well, because I think that's really interesting. It's really interesting. So, like during the race this year, look at the heart rate and everything. And it was, the pace was really high in the beginning. And so it's really interesting to see what kind of levels have they. So are they having? So that's that perspective as well. And then taking more from a droner perspective. So we level up, I think, from all perspectives. We're quite close to have, a really good production. It's not that, it's mixture, but that's also part of the race, I would say, to see, okay, so because it's like, when you're doing the race and the first thing you do during the race or just after the race is, okay, I should have planned this, I should have trained on that and everything. So we have the same thing from our perspective, so to speak. And that's also, that's the drive and the aim we have, to bring the very best viewer experience. And that's what I think we're getting to, a broader and broader audience. And that's what we really want to capture, the ones who are not into the sport, but just being part of the experience and the challenge and the drama. And we're getting quite there, I would say, because there's a lot of people out there who are not into endurance racing or so, but they are into the drama. And
yeah, they're into watching train wrecks, and it's like, well, what crazy thing are they doing next?
Yeah,
oh, for sure. And and honestly, I think that's one of the things that certainly as swim runners, it's fascinating everything that's involved. But as a casual endurance person or someone interested in seeing people perform at a high level, it's a spectacle in and of itself. I'm curious if that's translated into, I know the applications are open for the 2025 race. Are you seeing more interest in teams signing up?
Yes. Yeah. Now we have the number of applications has increased enormously, I would say, and we have more teams and more countries, and so for next year I will not talk about this.
Yes.
Will come, but we have
We're not talking about that.
but we have really interesting teams, and it's really interesting because now teams from all over the world are or at this time working on their application for 2026 as well. So we can see that, from a long, and that has been, my, the vision as well. And in the end, now we have some mixed, team with Sweden, Australia, and so on. But in the end, it would be interesting to have, like nation teams that we just have, Team USA, Team UK, would be, that would be interesting to see who are the best from the US, who are the best from UK, France, aliens, and so on. That would be an interesting development, I would say. But it's difficult because the team setup is so important. It's so important that we know each other and so on. So that's
from what you're willing to divulge. The entrance, are you seeing a pull in a certain area? Like I could see a lot of appeal towards the adventure racing community. Obviously, Swimrun there. How are you of the applicants that you've been seeing? Where are they indexing on what type of athletes are they?
I would say most of them are adventure racers, I would say, or have that multi-day experience. There are not so many swim runners. They are, of course, and you need to have that. But in the end, it's as we talked about before, it's more of a multi-day. Of course, you can, but it's so complex. And so even though you have like Ötö, it's really long, but that's, from taking a winning time of 7 hours to 55 hours, that's a huge step. Even though you have that's also, all the transitions and everything in they have like maybe, around 250, 300 transitions. Maybe.
Wow.
During OneWaterRace. And then of course you need, if you have the swimrun experience just to go and you have fast transitions, that's everything. So of course you have that. But I would say some swim runners are on, but with more of a multi-day experience. And in the end, that's what counts as well, because you need to have that multi-day experience.
I mean, certainly seems like the teams that have been successful with this race are the ones that have had, either they've been multiple swimmer world champions who are also endurance athletes, or just or adventure racers, or just like hardcore serious, like Team Australia, obviously. They've been doing awesome year over year. You mentioned something as you were answering that I love to hear. You're already talking about 2026, so I'd love to ask you, from the beginning, this was a big passion project for you. And for the last 2 years, we've been talking about, isn't this amazing that you're turning your passion into reality? Now, I mean, is this thing sustainable? Have you managed to find a model that you think you can do this for a decade?
Yeah, we're getting there, and that's also been it's been a long-term project, because starting a new sport, or not a new race and a new ride from that perspective is really complex, and we have the opportunity to be able to work in the long-term perspective, and so we're getting there, absolutely, and that's so we will be here for a long time. That's for sure.
I love it.
That's also, you want to explore things, and of course it's a dream, but it's now when you work with it, it's, there's so many around us that are really interested in this, and it's so many kind of different levels and everything, and if we have been trying to really work with a stable foundation of what in all that we're doing, to really try to do it right from the beginning and so on. That's I think that's the main part in this.
Yeah, I would love to hear, your third year now. What have you kind of seen evolve? What has surprised you in the evolution from the athlete perspective? Are people really more sophisticated at their equipment? Is it fueling? Are they being better on the navigation? Where have you really seen the top teams kind of evolve their strategy over the years, or where have you seen the race force the evolution of the athletes?
I would say it's the speed and not at least the movement to being there at all times. And in the end, there are not that many teams that has been able to make it to the finish line, and I would say that the movement part and being able to just continue and have a plan and stick to it from that perspective. In the beginning, it was maybe more of an adventure. Is this possible? Now it turns into a more professional setups from all teams when it comes to maybe equipment, but also how you handle, when you're using a full wetsuit or when you're using a normal swimrun suit or so it's getting on a more professional level in all the details as well. So we're getting to a phase that actually what you need to do to be able to reach the finish line. And when you look at the teams that are there, they are really working from such a professional level in that perspective. So
yeah, it shows for sure. I think just again, it was much easier to see it this year just because there was so much, I feel like, embedded coverage. So it's like you're at the front, you're like in a war zone almost, and some of the stuff where you're running through the bushes and someone's like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do, people throwing up. I mean, it was really, captivating and real, for lack of a better word. And obviously that struck a chord. It's great to hear that so many teams are applying to be part of this in the future. We talked about it earlier, but if you had to give any advice for teams that are like, hey, this sounds interesting, I want to apply, what would be, how would you politely sort of scare them away to make, make sure that they're adequately prepared for this thing?
No, but in the end, now I'm sitting right now with all the race strategies from new teams, and when I look at them when it comes to the physical part and training part, their plans are all really ambitious and really good from that perspective. But in the end, it's about the challenge of being awake and staying alert for such a long time. The race starts, the second night after 36 hours, and 36, that's a long time. And that's also, because like last year, because I'm out there on checking the race course or the areas and so on at all times, and even though you have a speedboat and you think that, or we run and so on, but you think that now we have come so far, but in the end, the archipelago is so big. It's
so big.
It never ends, and and that's that's the thing, and that's being able to stay alert after 36, 40 hours, because then you realize, you think that you have done so much racing, but you have all the way to Landsort to go, and to cope with that kind of challenge. That's everything. And that's also, when I talked with Marika Wagner after last year, it was like, I think at that time it's like 80% mental. And that's even if you can, of course you can run for a long time, but but you know, try to stay awake for all this time, and plan to, you know, that the race starts after 36 hours, and that, you know, we can see that it's a huge difference after 36 hours. Then it really starts. Then you can see what is happening, and it's getting slower, and you're doing you're taking the longest and everything, and that is really where you need to being able to level up and be alert. And that's also when the support crew are so important, this part of well. So
well, you know, when Marika says anything, I think we listen because she's such an amazing athlete. Like, obviously, you know, she is, you know, she's one of the best. And when she says that, I think it's, you know, everyone should listen. If it is 80% mental, and the race really begins on the second night, you know, this race is just continues to inspire and awe. And it's just, you know, it's crazy to think that, you know, next August you guys are going to do it again and level up again. I mean, it's so amazing to be a part of as a fan, and just witnessing what's possible with the sport of swim run in this respect. And I'm curious, is you know, what sort of feedback do you, I'm obviously like from racers and stuff like that, but what sort of feedback are you getting about this race from maybe your sort of casual like fan of sport or endurance fan, whether in Sweden and sort of outside?
Yeah, well, we have an enormous good feedback from a lot of people around the world that talking about not at least the live broadcast and so on. Then we work together with a French organization when it comes to the media distribution called ASO. They own Tour de France and the Dakar Rally and so on. They work with the media distribution, and the media is distributed to 190 countries over 5 continents. So it's a huge spread, and not at least in Europe it's big for this year. We have a partnership with Eurosport and so on. So but that's the big thing when it comes to response and so on from a media perspective, because it's now we're increasing the media distribution at all times, and that's what's really important here as well, to send it to a wider audience. But it's interesting. What I would say is the live production and the feedback from people who are not into the sport. That's because we know that if you're into the sport, this is good.
You already know that. Yeah, that's the
can
easy
confirm.
Yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Our aim has always been to reach out to the people who are not into the sport and just into, you know, the drama and the fascination of what you actually can do with the human body and so on, and the challenges and everything. And that is what I think is the most important, and what I'm more into. And that's been, you know, the feedback from people who are not into this at all, and telling me that, you know, we couldn't, you know, I've been watching live for 2 hours for 2 days straight, and you know, when they tell me that, you know, when we go to work, we have a computer or a screen where we watch the race and so on, and they wake up in the middle of the night, they need to look, you know, okay, what's happening to Team 5, and so that's
that was us. That was us. Like, you know, like any moment, like as soon as I woke up, I was like, okay, what's going on? I text Chipper, was like, oh my God, dude, you got to put on the live feed right now. Adriel, you know, I keep using the same example because it was just so, I never felt like I was so in a race than listening to Adriel mid swim yelling at Daniel to swim faster, to swim harder, because they weren't moving. And it was just like, you know, it's like to get that level. And obviously these are amazing athletes that we highly respect, but just to feel like you're that close to it was really something else. And certainly, you know, everyone that we knew, obviously our swimrun circle is pretty expansive at this point, just talking about it, sharing clips, following along, checking out the leaderboard. I certainly had it in the background while I'm at work. I had sort of like the live feed on the side, just seeing what was happening. All that stuff was just so amazing. And I mean, honestly, I don't know what else to say. We said it last year on how it's so great to see something that was a passion and a dream turn into a reality, and to see it keep leveling up year over year. It's an amazing thing to witness as sort of a fan of human achievement writ large, but also because of all the complexities involved. I'm curious, like, do you get a chance to kind of like maybe right after the race, after you sleep for a few days, once you get up from there, from like that fika induced slumber, from like hanging out with Kraken Swimrun after the race and celebrating, like can you sit back and just, have some, some perspective about what you've managed to build here? Or are you still pretty much just like, need to make it better, stay in the zone kind of thing?
Yeah, well, it feels like I've been into the zone for 5 years now. Yeah, yeah. So so that's I'm quite bad of that kind of thing, and sit back, even if I do it from a perspective, see how we can develop, but it's because it's an ongoing process at all times, so to speak. But it's getting more and more, I would say, healthier from
That's good.
from because in the end I need to be able to cope with the challenge as well. But it's more and more of that perspective, which is also really good, I would say.
I love it. So one final question for everyone watching at home or listening, wherever you listen to podcasts. So what can we expect? Any timelines that we know about for next year? Like, when are applications? When are teams going to start being announced and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think we had the timeline for the application. We will start. I'm not sure. I think we will release the first team before New Year, and we are full already. We know which teams are on the starting line, that will be on the starting line for 2020. And we have a very interesting spread, new countries coming in. And so I think, look forward to the first launch for the first team before New Year. And then we try to, they will, tomorrow's the 18th. Tomorrow, the 18th, we will tell which teams that will be on the starting line internally for them. So
okay. So they'll know. The teams will know.
They'll know.
The teams will know tomorrow. The teams will know tomorrow, and then we try to release one team at a time. And it looks really, really interesting. I would say. So I have at least one or two or maybe three new teams that are really, really interesting, and some that has been into the race the first year are coming back in new constellations, and so that's interesting as well. We have I will not tell you more. But
spoken as a true media person,
I know.
You've left us teasing out for more. So stay tuned to OneWaterRace on Instagram. Check out the YouTube channel. If you're looking for inspiring content, go there. Thomas Ogander, Swimrun OG, back on the show for the third time. Thank you so much for coming back on and taking the time to give us your race report for OneWaterRace, and can't wait to follow along and follow all the news as it comes out.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here at all times. Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Check out our website, lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel.
Of course, yes.
in order to keep things.